Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. It is Saturday, which means the TCB.net just received a fresh batch of game development goodness. Let's take a look about the sort of goodies, tips and tricks you'll be able to observe in this week's content. But first, ladies and gents, a couple of announcements. First of all, if you remember, in the last week's content report, I had mentioned that the entire week had pretty much been spent battling the Godot's animation pipeline, mainly trying to get the hand rig animations for the weapon reload and walking and sprinting and all sorts of animations to actually play within Godot engine. As you recall, right up until the very Saturday when I had to do a content report, I had a lot of trouble figuring out how to do that. And of course, I had to figure it out after the content was up. So this week was pretty much all about getting that up and running successfully. And if you recall, I did promise to publish the videos about how I got it up and running, and publish them I did. If you wish to take a look at the solutions in the videos, go to theconceptbay.net and create an account. Although most of the content here is available for the members with an active subscription, these videos you do not need a subscription for. These solution videos are available to paid and free accounts alike. So head on over to the Dream Team Theater category and you'll find in the side of the lessons list 2 free videos on getting the animations up and running. Figuring this one out had quite a learning curve and a major pain in my ass, and it is something that I would not want to wish on my worst enemy. So I'm really hoping that this will ease up the pain for a lot of people who are getting into 3D animation with Godot. The second announcement I wanted to bring to your attention is the arrival of a new platform feature now available for all registered users. It is a feature which will allow you to extend your membership and access to all of the content and allow you to get some video game development assets for your indie games. This feature is essentially an annotation tool. The annotation tool allows you to place timestamps in the video where you have found some sort of useful piece of information. As you may imagine, in a 1-hour-long live stream or video recording, there's going to be plenty of places where there's little tips and little tricks and little gadgets, some features, some functions, some software options that you may not have known about. These little grains are the golden nuggets of each episode, and I would like to get them all documented. Create a sort of a index of all the useful places and subject changes in each episode. As you may or may not know, I have to spend about 20 hours per week recording content for this platform, otherwise I'm basically wasting resources because my video hosting plan doesn't allow me to cross over unused traffic from last week to the next week. So I can't annotate things as I'm recording because some information that I may find commonplace can be useful for someone else. So the definition of a useful tip will vary from user to user. In addition, after recording 20 hours of content per week, I don't have another 20 hours to go through that content and annotate it myself. So thus comes the feature of coffee beans, the driving force of game developers, the fuel of programmers. Coffee beans will be the in-game currency, so to speak, on this platform. It is the currency which you can spend on game development assets, such as 3D models, textures, sound effects, sprites, animation, music, or alternatively, you can spend your coffee beans on membership tickets. Membership tickets are essentially a free pass subscription. You redeem your coffee beans for a membership ticket, it stays in your account until you'd like to use one, and when you do, that gets you access to the platform's content without having to pay a monthly membership. Potentially, it's not without reason to expect that maybe a few users will take it upon themselves to annotate all the fresh content and thus essentially get access to the platform for free indefinitely. That's it for announcements. Now, let's take a look at this week's content. If last week has been spent pretty much trying to figure out how to get the animations into Godot, this week has been all about actually doing it. So much so that I may or may not have actually spent the entire week working on nothing but Dream Team Theater. Kinda sucks that I didn't get to put any time into Child of Ether or A Cursed Kingdom, but I did actually get quite a bit of experience with going from start to finish with the animation pipeline, and we actually also got a little bit of texturing done on the weapon itself, including additional mesh details like the dials and a few other decorative pieces that I ended up modeling for the weapon. Now, even though I have basically modeled, rigged, and animated these hands with pretty much all the motions a FPS hand set with the weapon will have, these are still placeholder hands, and I'm still gonna be remodeling and reanimating the hands from scratch later down the line, mainly because there's been a few mistakes that I made during the rig, and I'm gonna have to redo them. But I needed to go through the beginning to the end process, from creating the model to getting it into Godot and programming the actual animation switches. Now that I've gotten through the whole process with these hands, I'm pretty sure I've hit every pothole and every tree there is to hit in this process. In a nutshell, pretty much most of the episodes have been spent in Blender and then Substance Painter, creating the animations and textures and doing a few modifications to the gun model only. And, you know, the embarrassing moments of me trying to obscure the fact that due to the rig that I've built, my wrists are twisting like candy wrappers. Now, I did do some off-camera experimentation just so that I could figure out how to get the wrist twisting motion and bone arrangement in place, and I did, and that's gonna come when I'm doing a remodel for this pair of hands, or you'll probably find me working on another tutorial or series, for example the Leadworks series that I'm working on right now, where I will be rigging a fresh pair of hands where I will be using that solution. In the sum of it, you will see me create animations for charging, looking down the iron sight, looking away from the iron sight, reloading the ammo drum that is to the side of the weapon, transitional animations of where you're about to start charging as well as when you have finished charging, walk cycle, run cycle, and throwing a grenade. The following episode was all about programming the transitions between all of these animations, and by this point, the boring gray textureless mesh kinda grew old on me, so I thought it was just about time to spice things up and switch gears and maybe do a little bit of texture work, just to keep things fresh. I don't know about you, but texturing for me is always such a relaxing process. I swear, if I ever get a job as a texture artist, I can die happy. There's quite a few interesting parts on the texture of this weapon, mainly the carving work on the iron bars and the brass iron sights. And probably one of my most favorite parts about this particular weapon is actually the glowing heads-up display for the pressure dial sticking out through the side of the weapon. I gotta tell you, man, this weapon was one hell of a choice for my very first attempt at putting the weapon into Godot, mainly because on top of all the shenanigans I had to deal with, this weapon has such a non-standard behavior, mainly the extra charging functionality that needed 3 whole separate animations and an additional piece of code for moving the needle dial in accordance to how much pressure you have in the weapon. Now, as a little side note, this is actually supposed to be a rare type weapon. You're supposed to acquire it by playing a game or like one of those arcade machines where you just stuff coins and you try to play some dumb game that is very clearly rigged against you. Or who knows, maybe imagine spastically playing Texas Hold'em while the horde of zombies is tearing down your barricades 5 feet away from your face. As a matter of fact, this particular weapon actually started as just a gag placeholder weapon. I called it the shit gun. But to be honest, the more heart and soul I poured into this weapon with the textures and extra mechanics, extra little animations, the more I feel like a piece of shit for calling it the shit gun. So how about this? I'll leave the opportunity to give this weapon a proper deserving name to you guys. What do you think this weapon should be called? Leave your suggestions in the comments below. Needless to say, after all was said and done, all the animations were in, or at least at this point, I've gotten a majority of the animations. We got some dynamic movement when the player is strafing left and right. I have programmed the needle, if you pay attention right now, responding to the pressure left in the weapon, and of course if you want to top off the pressure, you're gonna have to spin that crank like a motherfucker. And the longer you spin, the more pressure you get, and of course the harder it is to crank out that next shot. Now, I can't say that I'm entirely happy with the way the textures have turned out. To be honest, I was kind of hoping to get more of a shiny, very metal, very smooth, reflective look from the brass parts. And I think it may be in part due to the fact that I haven't actually implemented any reflection probes or GI probes, so we're gonna go ahead and experiment with some of those in the next videos.
You know, gonna do a little bit of smack that ass and shine that brass on this bad boy.
So this whole week is all about Dream Team Theater. I think I just needed to take some time with it because of the last week's fiasco. Just kind of push the project forward and get some substantial progress going. At this point, all that's left for a minimum playable game is the merchants with the inventory, the weapon crates that drop from the ceiling, and maybe a little bit of host voiceovers. I know just the perfect guy who has a fantastic voice for the host, and some sort of a level incrementation system. But other than that, maybe 1 or 2 more weapons, and I think we're good to go. This is all I have for this week. Remember that all of these videos in full, uncut, raw are available on theconceptbay.net. This and other projects to you, fully documented from start to finish, available to you under one single membership. This platform is essentially my own Patreon, where people get a lot more value out of supporting my game development stuff, instead of just simply donating. I will see you guys in the next week during the next content report, and until then, I hope you guys learned something.